Welcome to Franchise Fix. I'm not going to do a traditional intro here because I don't have one, but last episode we talked about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We're talking about the second episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier today, and I'm joined as always by Andy and Zach, and we're just going to get into it after we talk about our overall thoughts of the show so far, spoiler free for the most part. So, Andy, can you hit us with some of your thoughts so far?
I mean, so far so good. I'm not the big Marvel fan of the group, so I'm missing out a lot of like context to give you the filler, the backstory, the lead up to everything going on with each of these individual characters. No big story wise where the MCU's at. So it's interesting to like, ooh, this thing, this character. I can't wait to learn more about this and go back and watch the movies that I've missed to get some of those questions. But I like where it's going. This 49-minute business, though, it's another long episode with some not necessarily filler stuff in it, but things that it kind of drags on, makes me think of WandaVision, where they're really short. And I was like, what the heck? I have no idea what just happened, but it was 24 minutes and I can't wait for the next one. Versus this one is a little longer, drags on at various points. But overall, I'm still liking it. Thought it was a good episode. I liked it actually better than the first one. And I can't wait to see where we go next with it. Whoever wants to take it next.
I agree with you. I think that the 49 minutes is a long episode, but I also think that this format and the way they're telling this story is vastly different than the way they're telling the WandaVision story, and the exposition that they put into this 49 minutes is valid, is worth doing, in my opinion. So I agree. Like this episode a lot better than I liked the first one. We're actually getting some progress. I was actually concerned in the last episode we weren't going to get as much Bucky and Sam as I wanted, but this episode gave us all of that. It's a great dynamic between the two of them. And I'm excited to see them grow as a pair as well. And we already start to see kind of the budding aspects of their relationship to go forward. So I'm happy to see that, and I'm excited to see where they go as characters. And we get a lot more stuff about the our new villains as well. So that's really cool. Overall great episode. And I'm actually, last week I was a little bit concerned. I was like, oh man, am I really excited to see this next episode? And after delaying my viewing of this for a couple of days, now next Friday I'm gonna make sure that I watch it right away.
Yeah. I can totally understand being reluctant after the first episode because it kind of jumps back and forth between feels. Like you've got the opening with Sam in this high action scene, and then you go to a lot of this like slice of life stuff where Bucky's struggling with these things from his past. Sam is trying to help his family out, and it's just very ground level civilian kind of stuff until the very end where they show that we've got seemingly a new Captain America. And that's the cliffhanger, and that's great, but until then, nothing was really ramping up. But it is nice, too, that I like that they tackle stuff from the snap. I like when these Marvel properties do that. All of them have done it in different ways. If you look at Spider-Man Far From Home, they do it in a kind of funny way where, we've got this awkward situation where you've got these teenagers coming back that are now in the same graduating class as somebody who was in middle school. So it's super awkward in that sense, but then you've got stuff like the whole bank scene in the first episode with Sam and just like the consequences of not being an existing person for 5 years. But then it goes into this next episode and we get more of the like driving plot stuff. We get Bucky meeting up with Sam pretty much right away after the opening scene, and like just getting right into it. They build off of their relationship that they started to build in the MCU as the sidekicks of Cap, who don't really like each other all that much, but just kind of begrudgingly work together. And yeah, it gets right into it in this episode, and it's super high action, exciting stuff, and good banter between all of the characters, not just Bucky and Sam, but them with the new Cap we'll get into. And yeah, just interesting dynamics going on, and I'm excited to see where this goes. I will say, as much as I understand your thoughts on the length of the episode, I also realize too that this is only 6 episodes, so it makes a little more sense for this to be a little bit longer. It just maybe feels different pacing wise, and it's hard when you're coming right off of WandaVision too, because you got used to something. And kind of like we said in the last episode of this, talking about how everybody's used to these end credit scenes, you just kind of have to recalibrate yourself, get yourself used to something different, because these are different storytellers every time. They're going for a different thing, and it's still all in the same universe, but it's nice that the directors and creators in Disney and Marvel have a lot of freedom, it seems, to kind of go in the direction that they want to, but also do a really good job of keeping things close-knit, tied together story-wise as well. Well, with that being said, let's get into this first episode here. Second episode. So, the first scene in the second episode, we open with the new Captain America. We don't really know him yet, but he's in an army uniform, and he's in an old high school locker room. Apparently, it's his high school, because he's kind of reminiscing. He peels off a sticker on a locker to show his old locker, and he's practicing introducing himself as Captain America. And then he goes out to this rally in the Captain America suit. Marching band's playing. He's signing autographs. He's interacting with the crowd and everything. He's introduced to the crowd. And then he appears on fucking Good Morning America, which is, classic Disney shoehorning their properties into their other properties, because Disney owns ABC. ABC shows Good Morning America. Of course, that's going to be on there.
It works. Very meta Disney. Yeah.
It does. It absolutely does. I will say, though, it was at night, so it was kind of weird that he was on Good Morning America.
That's true.
Unless it was super early in the morning. Maybe
no, it
I'm
was
wrong.
super. Yeah, they said that. They talked about it, how it was like really early in the morning.
Okay. Yeah. I must have missed that part, because it was just so dark.
By the way, as marching band guys, did anybody else notice the tenor sax player who wasn't participating in the body move at the beginning? Really disappointing.
No, I didn't notice that, but I did notice just playing music and marching with instruments in front of them was not in sync at all. So that was pretty rough to watch. But no, I didn't notice that part.
I mean, all they have to do is consult us.
Absolutely. I'll work for so cheap. You have no idea. I just want the credit.
There's no marching band guys in there. Come on.
I mean, seriously.
I was excited for this scene based on the trailer, because the music that they used was pretty dope for this particular scene. And then watching it was it's just like a cheesy high school, marching band or kind of type scene thing you put in there. Got to relish on the memories of what it was like in the past, and now given this new responsibility type thing, going back to your old high school.
Yep.
Yeah, that scene was just super cheesy. I thought it was I thought it was funny, and I thought they meant it to be funny, as this just is so dramatic, this new, pretend Captain America is going back to his high school, reliving his glory days, and look where he is now, and then that compared to the way, Bucky and Sam see this guy, it's completely different. I love that juxtaposition. I think they did a good job with that.
Well,
and it makes him seem human
go ahead.
too.
Yeah.
Just it humanizes the character right away.
Totally.
Off the bat.
And then speaking of the juxtaposition, I just thought about the actual Captain America, Steve Rogers, was never this all-American boy. He was this anemic, skinny, just sick man who was denied entry into the military so many times, and it's his bravery that shows through, and why he gets the super soldier serum, and all the intangibles of a soldier. And this guy's the opposite, it seems. He seems pretty cocky. He's very full of himself. He's the all-American boy. His hometown's so proud of him. So proud of him.
And through the interview, they're like, and he tested, at the top 1% on all of his athletics, and he was the most intelligent. And like just this total stat-ridden, Captain America.
Yeah. And like going back to the last episode, this is exactly like the type of thing that you can see why Sam didn't want to take the shield or give it to anybody else, was because nobody can compare to Steve Rogers and his story and who he was, because he's more than just the guy that was souped up. Like, he was the prototypical soldier from the mindset. He believed in his causes. He believed in doing the right things. He believed in protecting others. He was willing to sacrifice himself so many times. And this is the exact opposite. So,
and we're going to learn a little later too, like what this character actually represents, because right now we're just presented, oh, it's this new Captain America, but like, who is he, like, for what though? What purpose? Like, yeah, we know it's the army that we're going to get a little bit here, or we see that's like what he is in the locker room, but like, why do they want a Captain America? And then we'll learn that a little later in this episode.
Absolutely. So speaking of him, we get finally his name, I think, in the interview. It's John Walker. So yeah, they say he's a highly skilled soldier, like you guys said. He's won 3 medals of honor. This guy's just great. And meanwhile, poor Bucky is on the floor of his apartment. Apparently he sleeps on the floor, which I guess that's his choice. Watching TV and just looking distraught at all of this. But speaking of John Walker, I felt compelled to look him up since we had the name. So in the comics, John Walker first appears in Captain America as the Super Patriot. He seems to be some kind of anti-hero or villain, some kind of antagonist to Cap on his introduction. He's later redesigned as a new incarnation of Captain America, which is kind of what we're getting so far, at least it seems in this show. And then a few years later, he is U.S. Agent is his name. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Like, that's his superhero name?
I guess so. U.S.
They're not very creative.
Agent. So
is that at all related to there's a Russian Captain America, right? There's like the Soviet. What's his name? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think we're gonna get him in Black Widow.
Yeah, it's like I don't remember his name, but I'm just wondering if these are all kind of related in the same comic run, from back in the I'm curious. I mean, I know there's so many different Captain Americas, but I know at least in one iteration, if not multiple, there is that man, I wish I looked this up beforehand, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The Russian Captain America.
Well, there's different, like, there's also like Captain like London or something like that. Rumors we're trying to get Henry Cavill's trying to get in on that role.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, it's cool that they're bringing in, I don't know if he will be like on the nose super patriot, but it's just
my expectation is not for that to happen. After what I saw fans do to WandaVision, I'm not doing that with this one. So I like the comic book references like this. Like, yes, there's a character to pull from, but I hope the fans then don't turn that into, all right, and then we're gonna see this character come up and this is the superhero. Like, it's like more like Easter egg,
the
things
Ralph
like
conversation from WandaVision. Oh my god.
Yes, probably the best. How it devolved into this whole thing and turns out to just be a dick joke.
Yeah,
and a damn good one at that.
Awesome.
So moving on in the discussion on the episode, we find Sam and he's walking through his Air Force Base, and he's kind of being inundated by all these signs that have the new Cap on them that says Cap is back, which is just a slap in the face to him as he's walking through. And finally, Bucky shows up. So he meets with Sam, and he goes into him about, like, how could you ever have given up the shield? can't believe you did that. Really pissed off
Shouldn't
at
have given
you.
up the shield, Sam.
I mean, he's got a point. I know
love
he
that.
didn't want this shit to happen, but look what happened.
I love that he like through the whole episode shouldn't have given up we should have got the you could have done that with the shield. Let's go get the shield.
Yeah, really could have used that shield as one of
Yeah.
the lines, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
And the shield is a huge symbol in this show too. And going forward, it's going to be a huge symbol. It's Steve's legacy. It's what Sam supposedly should have taken up the mantle as, and it's something that this guy who doesn't seemingly deserve it has now. So it's going to be a really interesting focus of this entire miniseries here.
It's a MacGuffin.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's our object we are chasing after.
Yep, ties everybody together too. Sam explains that he obviously never wanted this to happen, but Bucky really doesn't want to hear it. But anyway, Sam goes into telling Bucky about where he's going, and he tells him about the leader of the Flag Smashers and says that he's been following intel on them that he got from Red Wing. He then
Which Red Wing, I'm sorry, but Red Wing is awesome. Like I love that he's like characterized separately from Sam. I just wanted to point that out. He's like my favorite superhero.
They started that in, I think, Civil War, where he tells Black Widow to, thank Red Wing for saving her and not thanking Sam. And she's like, I'm not going to thank that thing.
Yeah, I know, but he's the best. He even leaves like separately from them in a scene too. Like it's awesome.
Yeah.
I love Red Wing.
Speaking of the comics, in a lot of iterations, Red Wing is a literal, I think, red-tailed falcon.
Oh,
so I think
that's cool.
That's where they're going with this, is like trying to give a personality to the thing that is a drone replacing the actual living thing.
This is one of those things I had to look up actually, because I didn't understand the Falcon. Like, what is he? Like, is he a super soldier? He's not a super soldier. He doesn't have any superpowers, because in the comic books he talks to birds. So like I'm very confused by this iteration of this character from what I know of him. And I did not understand what the MCU is doing with him. So I'm glad I now understand all of this and it's making sense, because for the little bit here of watching these episodes, I was very confused by everything.
He's way different in the animation too, the Avengers animation. Like he's like totally separate from the group until like they come together on like one mission, and then he becomes an Avenger. Marvel's the best, man. It's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show how good they are at taking these kind of absurd animated and comic ideas and integrating them into this real world situation that they're trying to create in the MCU.
I love it. So after that, they do the big three conversation.
Yeah, so funny. It
was awesome.
Yeah,
like the big three. It's not a thing.
Yeah, so
I think it's a great thing.
I think it's a great thing. Like what did he say?
It's aliens, wizards, and androids. Every time we fight anybody, there's one of those coming around.
It's one of the big three.
Yeah, and Bucky looks like there's no such fucking thing, and to the point where I think it's Sam asks Bucky Bucky asks Sam if they're going to be fighting Gandalf next, and Sam's like, well, how the fuck do you know Gandalf? He was like, I read the book in 1937 when it came out.
Yeah.
So, just kind of funny there, like the juxtaposition of like Sam clearly probably hasn't read the books and just watched the movies, and Bucky is from a time when the book came out, which is just, again, I love the interplay of like who these guys are in their time and how that works. We got a little bit of that in the last episode with Bucky, where he's playing Battleship on the date with the Asian American woman. I don't even think they strictly say what race she is, but I gotta assume Japanese if that's what they're going for there with the kind of Pearl Harbor connection, I would assume.
Yeah, it was like a Japanese bar too.
Okay, yeah,
like
sushi bar, that's right.
Yeah, they went to get sushi and stuff too.
But what I did like about this part though is it kind of sets up like a rule within the MCU going forward, which is like when you're dealing with these issues, who's responsible to actually like stop the bad guy? If there are wizards involved, we got to get Doctor Strange. If there are androids, we got to get the Vision involved. Even though he's dead right now, but like the specific hero. So it gives you an answer. Oh, why isn't Doctor Strange in this show? Well, it's because there are no wizards. We're not dealing with magical things. We're dealing with like the military and like super soldiers. So we're going to have those superheroes deal with those issues. If there are aliens, we got to call, Nick Fury, and we got to get the Skrulls and all that in this.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's something that we've talked about the DCEU and like their Superman problem, where you just feel like Superman could swoop in at any time, and it's because they don't establish like who fights what threat at what point. It's just kind of like everybody fights everything in that, and yeah, it's a good way to establish.
Yeah, they like separate it out.
It's a good way to establish though, because that is a good question. Sometimes it's like, why don't they just call so and so? It's like, first of all, they're not always available. But second, this is their own world. This is their own territory. And this is where their expertise are in. So why would they call somebody who has a totally different skill set into this unless we're dealing with Thanos level stuff here?
Yeah. And it's a good idea to do that in universe. And it's not just the explanation to say, well, that's because it's from their comic book. That doesn't matter. It's having that explanation in universe. Like, well, this is who deals with it because that's their kind of expertise or whatever.
Absolutely.
Having that in there.
Yeah.
So a lot of the Bucky and Sam stuff that I like in this conversation carries over while they're on the plane too. Bucky and Sam kind of both struggle with like I feel like especially this is more evident in the plane itself. They like struggle with the absence of Steve's leadership. Like Bucky's like he doesn't want to give Sam the control, but he also like is not sure what to do without Cap, without Steve. And like the reason I'm bringing that up now is just because from the beginning to where we see Sam and Bucky to when they're on the plane, we already see a growth in their relationship from like the kind of the beginning of it where like he's really confrontational, and now there's this tension of this like who's gonna act first, who's gonna take control. And we just see that through line continuing through that conversation into the plane. But anyway, on the plane, we get some cool stuff too.
Yeah, that's a really good point, though. So, yeah, Bucky basically forces his way onto the plane. He says he's coming with Sam, and they've got those awkward moments together. Sam jumps out of the plane, obviously pretty easy to do when he's got the flight suit. Bucky follows him because there's no parachute, and instead of using a parachute, he uses his vibranium arm to break his fall, which can't have felt good. Like, it was actually really cool to see him just kind of like slicing through trees as he went down and everything, but it was not a good landing. Looked like it was no fun, and it's kind of like the opposite too of what you see Steve do in Captain America the Winter Soldier, where he like lands gracefully on the shield unharmed, and Bucky, like, he does use the thing to break his fall, but he seems like way more shaken up by it, and is just so more janky as he goes down. So they're in this warehouse, I guess, where they're watching the Flag Smashers. That they found them in Munich, Germany, and they're using Red Wing to kind of scope things out so they can be stealthy. And let's see. So the Flag Smashers are loading up these trucks, and all these Flag Smashers, like not just the one that we saw in the last episode that confronts Torres, seems like they're all super powered. Because you see them lifting these huge crates with ease, so it's like, okay, super soldier serum has been getting out somehow, and these guys got a hold of it. So that's not a good situation.
Doesn't that contradict? I mean, it's the MCU, so they can do whatever they want. But like, I thought the whole premise of the Incredible Hulk was to say like they hadn't done this in a while, and that's why they were like trying to create the Hulk. And then now it's like, oh wait, the military has been, or someone or something, and then we'll learn later on like, yeah, there were more of these.
Well, it's kind of weird. So, like, you mentioned the Hulk, and unfortunately, in the MCU Hulk movie, they don't really go into like the whole backstory. It's just kind of like picking up with him as Hulk, and that's with Edward Norton as the Hulk at the time. Yeah. So it's unfortunate that we like have this guy who's been in most of these big team up movies in the Hulk, and we don't really have an origin story for him. But when it comes to the super soldier serum, like you do think in Captain America, the First Avenger, that like it's gone after they give it to him, because the whole big deal is there's the guy infiltrating when he's getting the serum, trying to steal it, and they stop him. But in Civil War, we get the opening scene with Bucky as the Winter Soldier in like 1991, and he's murdering Tony's parents, and it's to retrieve a case of super soldier serum. So that, I think they end up using super soldier serum on those Winter Soldiers that Zemo ends up killing in the end of Civil War, because all of them seem super powered to the level of Bucky and Cap, but they obviously don't have like the appendage like Bucky does, but they seem super strong. So I think maybe it's a downgraded version of the super soldier serum. Maybe they've been trying to reproduce it over the years, but somehow they're getting it, and I gotta imagine we're gonna get answers with something that comes up later. But I think it's gonna be tied to Hydra in some way, and to Bucky and him retrieving that case. Like, where did it go? You know, obviously it was used on some of those Winter Soldiers at the base in Russia, but do we know what happened to the rest of it? If there was any more, was it stored, used? I imagine they wouldn't have tried to reproduce that serum that they stole before using it all. So,
well, I think we'll see. We'll get answers to this, because I think that's why, you know, we'll see later on who they're going to see, and then they're looking for that specific answer.
Right.
You know, that's gonna be a big part of it.
Yeah. But yeah, it does at first seem to contradict that whole thing with like Cap seems to be the only guy who gets the super soldier serum, but they have been seeding in there throughout the movies that it's out there in some capacity. So yeah, that they're scoping out the Flag Smashers, they're loading up the trucks, and that they find out that they've got vaccines of some kind. So who knows if that's more super soldier serum or if it's something that's actually vaccinating them. But
I think it's actual vaccines, and I think this is leading up to like your point before, Ted. I don't know if we talked about this like on the podcast or not, but like, who are these people? This particular group, we're calling them terrorists, but I don't think they're terrorists.
They at least don't see themselves as that, and that you're right that they have sympathizers later on, and I think it makes more sense that it is actual vaccines, and I think they do mention that it's vaccines that they're trying to distribute to people.
Well, you know, this could be an interesting parallel to, because so we after this part, right, they go on the trucks and we see that Memphis Nest is like, you know, the leader of the Flag Smashers. Well, this Flag Smasher group could be very similar to Memphis Nest's Cloud Riders that we see in Rogue One. You know, this like radical group that are considered terrorists by some, but are maybe trying, you know, to do something good. Who knows?
That's a good point.
Well, and I think they're getting lumped into like one thing, right? So we're just, this group is a terrorist organization, but that's the label they've been given because there are people doing bad things. Meanwhile, there are also people under the same banner who does not believe themselves to be a terrorist group, and they're doing the good things. And I think that's a nice parallel to what happens with like the Avengers themselves, right? Is that they're the good guys, but they get labeled as something bad, and now you've got like the government and people who view them negatively now. but it's not who they are. It's not who they identify with. In fact, they view themselves as they are, the superheroes saving the world and whatnot.
Right. And we got in the last episode
Nuance.
too.
Nuance,
absolutely. And we got in the last episode too that whole thing with they've got the kind of like dueling agendas. This Flag Smashers do. They want a world without borders. That sounds great and idealistic, but then they also think things were better off before the snap. Or not before the snap, but after the snap, before everybody came back from the snap. So, it's this dueling agenda that probably gets certain people to join them for one reason, others to join them for another reason, and that's like what makes them iffy right now. Is one of those things is idealistic and great, the other kind of seems nefarious. Like, which is the stronger position for them? Which is the one that's going to ultimately take over in the end?
Well, and even in the last episode too, I think it's a great discussion of good versus evil and where do they fall, this gray area. We're told they're a terrorist organization. I don't remember what atrocities they'd done, but the crime we see them commit is robbing a bank. And
right.
When you're robbing a bank, who are you really robbing? It's not necessarily the people who keep their money there, because your money's protected. You can still get your money out even after the bank has been robbed. Who get screwed over is like the bank owners, who are the millionaires and billionaires. So it's like, in a subtle way, we're seeing, we've labeled them as a terrorist, but what we're doing is we're going to show you all of the not so bad things that they're doing.
Right. So as they're scoping things out, using Red Wing, Sam has this really cool feature with Red Wing. Apparently it's like either infrared or X-ray, I guess, and he can see through the truck and sees that in the truck there is a human passenger. So he assumes immediately that it's a hostage, which immediately Bucky reacts.
They're gone. Yeah.
Yeah. So Bucky reacts, gives chase immediately, and Sam goes after him as well. So Bucky is the first one to catch up with the truck, and always really cool to see these guys who are just running, but they're super powered, able to catch up with vehicles, and that they shoot it in such a cool way that makes it look realistic. They have them sprint all out in one scene where they're not near the truck, and then that they have it kind of far away so it doesn't look too bad in CGI, and have them jump on as the actual stunt guy later on, and it looks really cool. So opens up the trailer. This is actually where they find out that it's vaccines. So he's kind of scoping out the trailer, sees that it's vaccines that they've taken, and he finds the person that they think is the hostage, and it's this young woman who
Enfys
is...
Nest.
Yeah, it's the actress who plays Enfys Nest in Solo, for people who are confused about that. I'm sure there are some people who haven't seen Solo, because...
So I said Rogue One earlier, didn't I? Solo is the movie that it's from, yeah.
I didn't even notice that, but I don't know, everybody kind of knows that Solo was not the best received initially. I don't know if everybody went back and watched it, and it's okay. But anyway.
People might not even, like you said, not know it's the character. I do find it's funny, though. It's a very similar character as the last one. Oh, a gray labeled as the bad guy who might be
exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting too that it's in Disney's two most popular properties that she's doing this. So she might show up in some animated movie later on. Who knows? So yeah, he thinks she's the hostage, and asks if she's okay. She ends up just kicking the shit out of him. So literally kicks him to the point where he flies out the trailer and hits the truck behind. Then he is grabbed by a couple of Flag Smasher goons, and that's when Sam ends up swooping in, and he sends Red Wing initially. And I gotta say, guys, I'm pretty sad about this, but pour one out for Red Wing, because he is destroyed by this female Flag Smasher. She grabs him and kind of just breaks him over her leg like a baseball bat, like an angry baseball player after he strikes out. And it was just really sad. And again, pour one out for Red Wing. Hopefully he comes back.
You know what's going to happen is Tony had a Red Wing backup.
Oh, you think?
We're getting a Stark Red Wing. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Without a doubt.
That'd be cool. Yeah, he's always got something for everybody, huh?
Yeah.
Or we'll get like a new one because we assume he's going to become Captain America, right? So we got to give him like a bald eagle, maybe Baldy.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Absolutely. Or he should name it after himself. Call it Uncle Sam.
Ooh, I like that.
Well, I think that that irony is not lost on me, by the way, that he is Sam and maybe becoming Captain America. Uncle Sam.
That's probably one of the things that ran through his head too when he decided to give up the shield. Is like, people are gonna fucking call me Uncle Sam, aren't they?
Yeah. Right.
And then they're gonna be posters of me pointing, and yeah,
it's
gonna be too much. I can't handle that. Let's just get rid of the shield right now. So yeah, Sam tries to stop her with Red Wing. Unfortunately, Red Wing's destroyed, and then she starts to subdue Sam. So she's super powerful. And when it's looking pretty dire, in comes the new Cap. He swoops in with his buddy in a helicopter, and his buddy is named Lamar Hoskins. We'll find out later. And
I called him Black Guy.
Yeah. Well,
when you were watching.
Yeah, I was like, oh, here comes Black Guy.
That'll
they don't like give him a name.
That'll come up later, though. Kind of funny enough. With the
he has a name badge on, but they don't give him a name. Yeah. They never they're not like they never say like, oh, say my buddy, this is my guy.
No, later on they do.
Later on, but up until this point, we've already seen this guy coming in. He's just my Black Guy.
No, come on. They had the name on there. They don't need to say, "Oh, Hoskins, great to see you." His name tag was there.
They give that's whole good intro to Cap. No, they give the whole intro to this new Captain America character, and they don't even introduce us the character's name at any point to the show until after the fact. I'm sorry.
I think that's a crazy criticism.
So you're thinking that new Cap is like our former president saying, "There's my Black Guy."
Well, we'll get to things like that. I think there's a lot you could, paint this certain Captain America as to be a representation of things in the real world.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. And when we get to that conversation, I'm gonna backtrack on what I just said about, because that may have a bigger implication on what we see about the kind of the racial tones in this episode. So maybe you're right. I thought that his name was not as important, or saying his name wasn't as important because he had the name tag. But you could have a point with the implications that come in this episode.
Yeah, later on we get a little more context to why I think that matters.
That's fair.
It's about the implication. Anyway, so while they're fighting, so New Cap swoops in with his buddy, Black Guy, so far, I guess, according to Andy. And he's looking pretty dope, actually, at this moment. He's boomeranging the shield around like a boss. I mean, it just...
Well, did you see Bucky caught it for him?
Yeah, which is a really cool scene because he catches it and hands it off to him like he would to Steve, but he looks like, what the fuck did I just do? That's not Steve. Why am I handing it off to this guy? It's like a reflex at this point for both the Bucky before and the Bucky after the Winter Soldier working together with Steve. So that was a really well shot moment where they focus in on his face for that split second there.
Yep. I thought the whole action sequence here, I picked down the first episode a little bit of how long that action sequence was. I thought this one was done much better. The last one looked good. This one looked good too, but I thought was more grounded in what the episode was trying to do and get the plot moving forward, and it didn't go on too long. It got us to where it needed to, ended it climactically enough, or leaves you with they eventually get away and whatnot. But it's done so in, I think, a really nice way.
quick contextualized action scene. Really good.
Yeah. And I think it works better in this episode, too, because in the first one, Sam's flying solo. So there's really not room for banter other than between him and Torres at that point. And there's a little bit, but it works better with while he's doing the thing in action, that he's talking to the man on the ground, so to speak. But in this case, because it's Bucky and Sam working together right now, having those character moments with each other makes more sense in this scene. So I actually like that they like played it differently in this sense. It's not even like a correction like to something that Andy would enjoy more. It's more like this is a different way of showing it because it's a different situation entirely.
Sure.
So the fight continues here with New Cap and his buddy swooping in and helping them out. And Bucky ends up being in danger of being run over by the truck at one point when he's thrown off, and he has to kind of slice his vibranium arm through the truck in order to just cling on. So he's like half under the truck here in a desperate situation with a flag smasher, like just kicking down at him. The classic bad guy move when somebody's about to fall, just kick him a bunch. And in this moment, I actually noticed that his arm looks a little different. It might have been noticeable earlier, but it looks like he's got some Wakandan tech kind of intermeshed into it now. Like the purple and gold look to it now, which is really interesting. And maybe we'll see something new come out of it with that. I was half expecting him to have something that blasts energy out like Shuri does in Black Panther.
It's going to be different. Well, and you saw that too when he ripped his sleeve off.
Right.
That's when they showed his arm. And moving forward, just going off of this point, Sam says to him when he's actually, this might have been prior to, but Sam says something to him like, "Oh, you spend a little bit of time in Wakanda, and all of a sudden you're the White Panther." And he's like, "Actually, it's White Wolf."
White Wolf,
and he's like, "White Wolf." It's like, what? And there's going to be some really cool Bucky and Wakanda stuff in this, and maybe White Wolf is going to play a bigger role. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Ted. There's going to be some really cool Wakanda stuff with that.
Yeah, well, we had that teased a little bit in I think not Endgame, Infinity War, when T'Challa goes to grab Bucky to join the fight. That's when White Wolf is first mentioned, and it seems like a throwaway line, but that was actually something I probably should have looked up to see if there's a Bucky Barnes White Wolf Marvel.
Yeah, there is.
hero.
Oh, there totally is.
Yeah.
That was one I should have included. So sorry, everybody, I missed one.
Well, Andy, it looks like you have it up. What is White Wolf?
It's just his one of those alter ego type characters.
Probably
White
like
Wolf
a
is an alias.
code name.
Oh no, that's just a whole bunch of things.
So maybe it's just in the context of Wakanda when it's Winter Soldier / White Wolf with Wakanda, whatever. But yeah, I was happy to hear White Wolf in this, and I was like, oh, that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some Wakanda stuff here.
Yeah, good pickup because that was in the warehouse scene. So
that was a little earlier.
Missed adding that in. That's the hard part of even though I take notes on these episodes, like in order to get all the banter between these two too, like there was so much of it and it was all so good. It's hard to pick up on all of it and be able to take note of it. But that was a really good one there. So in this fight, by the way, some of the cinematography I really enjoyed. Just that we got a few shots of Sam flying where you're looking at him as the audience member, but then you got more of these like POV from like where Red Wing actually would have been before he was destroyed on Sam while flying toward the trucks, and I thought those were really cool looking during this fight. So Sam goes to swoop in and save Bucky from being run over, and in doing so, he does say that little girl kicked your ass, which was a fun little line. Just
Yeah.
more of the jarring at him, and so he swoops in, grabs him, saving him from being crushed. And I love how they kind of roll in a field, like it was a really like serene looking meadow almost, and it looked like Anakin and Padme rolling together in the flowers in Attack of the Clones. And
I had a similar thought. Yeah.
yeah, and it works really well actually, because they're both very upset about the other being on top of them. So it's not like the giggles that we get from Anakin and Padme, unfortunately.
I love Sam and Bucky. These guys are going to be good together.
Absolutely. So, and in the fight too, I wanted to make note of the new Cap. He uses a pistol during the fight, and I guess it shouldn't be that jarring to me, because there are some moments in like the montage stuff in the first Captain America movie where he walks in like with the Howling Commandos by his side, and he's got his shield and he's got a pistol. But I don't know, like you rarely see Steve use anything but the shield. It's just his bare hands in the shield, and like other than getting Mjolnir later on in Infinity War and Endgame. But I don't know, it just looked really weird to see a guy with the shield shooting somebody with a pistol. Just didn't play with me, and I think you're supposed to feel that way.
Yeah. It tells you about this character. This is not Captain America. This is a new character that is for the purpose of the layperson in this universe to tell them, oh, it's that, the hero, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, there's more to it than that.
Yep.
Well, not only that, but I mean, Ted, you just mentioned Mjolnir, the most honorable weapon that he could possibly use versus this uncivilized pistol. To borrow a line from Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's just the completely opposite direction for Captain America.
Yeah, and just going off of that a tiny bit more, like I said, Cap only uses the shield and his fists, and that's such a weird juxtaposition to see a guy who uses something that's supposed to protect you as a weapon when he's fighting strategically, but not to like kill anybody. But then you've got this guy hiding behind the shield, pulling out a pistol. Really, really interesting juxtaposition and imagery there in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam obviously saved Bucky, and the new Cap and his black buddy are still fighting on the truck, but his buddy gets thrown off the truck, and it looks like he's gonna, pretty much die because he's going at high speed and he's gonna skid and die. The new Cap does a pretty cool move and throws the shield like a sled, kind of going back to those like really smooth ways that Steve used to use the shield, as opposed to Bucky using his arm there. This looks super smooth, and it goes under him like a sled and saves his life. But finally, the female Flag Smasher punches Cap into a car that's behind them, and they get away. So later on, Bucky and Sam are walking down the road, looking pretty defeated, and they're arguing, having their banter back and forth. And this is actually when the new Cap and his buddy pull up in a military jeep and offer them a ride, and they're not having it at this point. And I wouldn't either, because they didn't ask for their help. They didn't like that this guy's the new Captain America to begin with, and he's coming in and he's acting like he's their buddy too. Like he doesn't even go through the motions of introducing himself or anything. He's just like, this is what we got to do next time. We've got to catch up with these guys, and this is the intel we've got, and we could really use your help, instead of like, hi, it's a real honor to meet you. I'm so honored to be Cap now, and so honored to meet you guys who were his sidekicks, the guys working by his side. Instead, like, he just goes into like, we need to be working together immediately, and it does not play well for them. They want nothing to do with this fucking guy.
Yeah, no, this guy sucks.
And this is where we get mention of the organization too that they're a part of. We get the reveal that this Captain America works for an organization like called the GRC or something like that.
Global Repatriation Council.
Yeah, and this is like a pseudo government that was established during the blip, I'm assuming, to kind of manage all of the chaos that was caused. And now we're well, it's still chaos, but the show has done a lot to like move us past that chaotic part. But it's clear that these individuals, they've got power, and that they don't want to, or individuals, this collective organization has power now, and they don't want to give up that power. They want to maintain it, expand it, and I think this is our new true bad guy, if you will, not necessarily character, but organization, at least to hate on.
Yeah, they're going to be interesting going forward, because that's another one kind of like the Flag Smashers, where on the surface they've got this scheme, or not even a scheme, but the agenda is supposedly to help everybody who came back from the snap and reestablish things. But it seems like the big problem with them, as we find out later on in this episode, is, well, they do a lot for these people who came back, but they could give fuck all about anybody who was here and struggling before, and they offer nothing to them. So it's going to be an interesting thing moving forward.
One world, one people.
Absolutely. We love our chance here, between the Star Wars stuff and Marvel stuff.
This is the way.
Absolutely. I have spoken. So, yeah, they mentioned the GRC, who's tasked with providing resources to people who came back from the snap. And we're introduced finally to Black Guy, Andy's favorite guy, Lamar Hoskins. And so first, they're like, who the fuck are you finally? Like, and it kind of plays to Andy's point, is like, a lot of the stuff that happens in this, like, seems like it's really stupid, but it seems like it's all done on purpose when you get later into the episode. And, going off of this whole race thing that we're going to get into with this show, it's going to play a lot on the themes of what's going on in America today and what has gone on in America in the past. So we're introduced to him, and it's after one of them asks, who are you? And he says, I'm Lamar Hoskins. And Sam says, like, I'm going to need a lot more than, like, that's your name. That doesn't explain anything, why you're in this getup that you're wearing. So he doesn't really offer much more, and he says, oh, I'm Battlestar. I'm Walker's sidekick here. So, Battlestar is a character in the comics, by the way, and all I could really glean after a cursory search is, like, he does seem to be the Falcon to this new Cap. He seems to be just the sidekick, as far as I can tell, and I'm sure more people would yell at me and say that there's more to him, but I don't know. I just don't know much about him, and that's what it said on cursory searches. So, it kind of fits, actually, that it's just like, I'm just this guy, I'm his sidekick. So, New Cap mentions that he wants them to team up, like I said. He's trying to say that he's not here to replace Steve, and it would also be so much easier if he had Cat's wingman at his side, and, like, he thinks this is something that's, like, gonna play well with them. And when he says the wingmen, that's when Sam's like, you just had to add that extra sentence. Like, it's adding that insult to injury where, they obviously were sidekicks with Steve. And there's the whole sidekick complex that we'll probably get into in this series. But on top of that, he was a guy that they respected and were happy to work side by side with. But here comes this fucking guy, and he's like, I respect you guys, but it'd be really cool if you be my sidekicks now, because I'm Captain America now. I'm not trying to replace Steve, but I just said that a sentence before I'm saying I want to replace Steve, and I want you to be my sidekicks now. And that does not work when you're talking to these guys. They're very prideful.
And I get it. I can still understand this character's motivation. He thinks by working for this organization, at least it's how it's presented right now, that he's doing the right thing. And it would be much easier, instead of us fighting, we just team up. I don't want to be, Steve. I'm this Captain America, and it would look way better if we're all working together. It would just solve a lot more issues. So I'm still not sympathetic, but understanding of this character so far.
I mean, he's there for propaganda.
Yeah.
And this is getting them on his side is more of a marketing ploy than anything else.
Well, not only that, it's just to further, his goal here. It's you guys need to help me because I'm Captain America and you're the sidekicks. And, if we all work together rather than you guys working as free agents, which is what Sam ends up saying they are, is essentially we're free agents. You guys do your own fucking thing because we're not working for the government. We don't have these restrictions that you have. So it's just this thing that does not mesh at all when it comes down to it, because he's really just trying to recruit them when it comes down to it, for no benefit of their own. They're trying to do their own thing here. So after this, we catch up with the Flag Smashers again, and we see that they're given refuge in like this safe house with this family that supports their cause, and they've got this whole kind of in-law apartment area of their home carved out for them, for a place to sleep. They give them a bunch of food, and they've got a computer in the room and all this stuff they can use to, help them on their way as kind of a rest stop, a refuge.
It looked like an internet cafe. That these people. That was my guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it looked like there's probably like like they own this internet cafe, and that's how like they discovered them.
Oh.
They're internet people. And then they've got like a safe room in the back, essentially.
Yeah, that would make sense, I guess. It's an interesting pickup. So when one of them is on their computer, he's saying that he's kind of erasing their aliases and kind of their footprints after this run-in with the new Cap and Bucky and Sam. We see when he's doing this, they do a close-up on the leader here, the Enfys Nest actress. Her name is Carly Morgenthau, and just to tie this in quickly to the comics again, there's no Carly Morgenthau in Marvel Comics, but there is a Carl Morgenthau, and that is the singular character Flag Smasher. So we mentioned in the last episode of this that Flag Smasher is a singular character, and we thought it was interesting that they're using the name for a group right now. So Carly Morgenthau is the feminized version of Carl Morgenthau, and it would seem at this point that this would at least be the leader. So if there's one you could call Flag Smasher, I'd say it's her currently. We might find out more as we go on. But
well, I think that's where I would disagree is we find it out. Like, I think she's the face, the representation of the organization. They all look up to her. She's like the leader you want. There's like a term for it, but like she becomes the leader because they can look up to her. But she gets that text message that says like, I'm coming for you. I know, like, I want my stuff back, as if like she's working for someone else.
Well, I mean, to me, it's more. It's kind of like the. Well, there definitely could be. She could be working for somebody else and everything, but she's like the Katniss Everdeen of. Of this organization. She's the marketing piece. She's the face that everybody can look at, and kind of give the organization a character. And that's kind of what it seems like to me as well.
Well, and also on top of that, it's not just that it's like she's the face of it, but she's doing something she's not supposed to be doing. This is not like what they intended to do. Yeah. So I think this is that when I was talking about the organization of, what are they called again? The
GRC?
Yeah, no, the Flag Smashers.
Yeah.
Like, because you get like the juxtaposition now of these two different organizations, the GRC and now the Flag Smashers, right? The Flag Smashers are labeled a terrorist group, and there is probably truth to that. But what you're seeing is that the character, now we know Carly, she is probably more of on the activist side of it, and kind of got roped up into the quote unquote terrorist side of it. And this is like her trying to do the thing that she wants to do. She wants to save the people. She wants to reunite the world under one banner, not these separate conflicting countries and whatnot, constantly at war with one another. She saw the good in what came as a result of the blip. So I think this is where she's not the main bad guy. She might be bad because of association and what she's done to get to this point, perhaps. But clearly, I think this is establishing she is not the main bad person, and there's some big baddie out there that we'll meet later on, which could be Zemo too. I would be suspecting that, like, even though he's in jail right now, the marketing for him has him look like he's a member of the Flag Smashers. So I would suspect that, like, maybe he's actually the big baddie, kind of working like from jail essentially to work behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Maybe. So anyway, after this is actually where we get the first mention of, like, what the issue is with the GRC. She actually is the one who says they care more about the refugees from the blip than they do about the people who survived it. And this is also where we first get their kind of moniker, the One World War One people, and that's their rallying cry, their moniker, their chant, I guess. And that's probably, going back to what you were saying, Andy, about, like, her cause in all of this, that's probably where that chant stems from more than anything. It's like the good in this, but yeah, we might find out more about the bad going forward here. So later on, Bucky mentions that he wants to steal the shield back, which is something that I suggested might happen in this series. So kind of keep that in the back of your heads as we go forward. Sam actually disagrees, though, and, tells him that none of this was what he wanted. But Bucky ends up telling him after this that there's somebody that he wants him to meet. So he brings him to this house, seemingly in the projects, it looks like, in an area, and to meet this old man named Isaiah. So it's this old African-American man named Isaiah who ends up mentioning that Bucky, as Hydra's Winter Soldier, was hunting him down and hunted down several of his colleagues who were apparently soldiers who had some form of the super soldier serum and were experimental super soldiers. And apparently this guy Isaiah was the only one who survived the encounter with the Winter Soldier. So to quickly stem off of that, going into comics again here, Isaiah Bradley, I looked up. I only had the first name to go by off of this episode, but I'm assuming this is who he is. Isaiah Bradley in the comics is depicted as an early product of the U.S. Super Soldier program during World War II, and at one point he is known by the Captain America title. So it looks like there's an alternate Captain America, this Isaiah Bradley, at least in the comics. So that'll be interesting to see if more comes from that with him. I imagine with the way they left things off, maybe we won't see him again. Maybe it was just a tidbit thrown in there. But
I think it's definitely, this is a plot device to, like, set up why are there the other super soldiers out there. That it wasn't just Captain America, Steve Rogers. There are more. So it's a thing that maybe has been leaked, that now the bad guys have it. And that's why we're seeing these other super soldiers today. But then it's also setting up the, I think, more thematic part of why we're getting this Disney Plus show, which has to deal with race, race as an issue. Or a concept, in particular in the United States.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if we could touch on that for a minute, I think this sequence, maybe it was a little bit on the nose, but I mean,
well, and it comes up a little later. We get a even more direct, like, here's the problem with it in the next scene.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I guess if we want to go through that scene quickly, then we can kind of backtrack and touch on the race implications. We can do that.
Yeah. So yeah, while talking to Isaiah, Bucky, tells him that even though they were on opposite sides of their conflicts before and that he's not the Winter Soldier anymore, he says, hey, there are more people like us out there who have this super soldier serum in them, and I need some information from you so we can try to backtrack this. Like, do you know how they possibly got a hold of this stuff, how it's still been in existence here, and if we can track anybody down? But the guy throws him out of the house, essentially, and we find out that he's got the super soldier serum when he picks up an object. I couldn't even really tell what it was, and throws it angrily, and it gets lodged into the wall. So this guy's got some strength even in his old age, and he's like, get the fuck out of my house. I don't want to talk to you about this, especially because, when he interacted with him, he was the Winter Soldier. Whether he says that now or not, doesn't really matter to this guy. So he throws them out, and they're outside kind of dejected here. And, well, right before this, actually, he does tell them that because of, like, what he went through, he was put in jail and tested on for 30 years. So, like, I really hope we get more into that, his backstory, as far as, like, what exactly happened to him, why he was thrown into jail and why he was tested on so much. And it'll be really interesting to see some of the other implications that come from that, based on race, as well as we get more into some of the later stuff in this episode. So that's when they end up leaving his house, and Sam actually, tells Bucky that he's upset that there was a super soldier, a black super soldier, and that nobody ever told him. That Steve never told him, Bucky never told him, and Bucky reveals that Steve didn't even know. So he kept it secret from Steve. And while they're walking, they're actually approached by cops because it looks like they're having some kind of dispute. And this is where some of the race implications come in, is they get more in Sam's face than anything at first. And, they say there's no conflict, leave us alone, we're all good here. And it's only when one of the cops realizes who Sam is, that he's Falcon, kind of going back to that first episode where the banker realizes who he is. It's like, oh, no worries, you're good to go here, nothing to see here, let's leave you be.
Well, we missed another little important scene in this episode too. I think it's either right before they're going to the house, or it's in another. I can't remember now where it happened. The kid, yeah. He goes, "Oh, it's Black Falcon," and he's like, "Black Falcon? No, it's just the Falcon." And he goes, "No, you're black," and it's like, and he's saying, "But does that matter?" Like he's like trying to say, like, why are you making it about my race in this instance? Where that part isn't important.
Yeah.
But race is very important. It is very important, as we're about to find out in this particular scene we're talking about.
Absolutely. And it's a good comedic moment to approach this tough subject, and like when they first introduce it here with the kid, because he does say, what would I call you, black kid? Is that your title? Is that what everybody would call you? So he throws it right back at him, but it's a nice comedic way to lift a little bit of the tension and ease people into the conversation that we're about to have here, which doesn't necessarily need to happen for a lot of people, but for some people they kind of do need to be nudged in there and eased into it.
Right. Well, and so to kind of finish up this scene, and then we can get into that, is basically the cop tells the cop asks Bucky, "Is this guy bothering you?" And seems like he's like, "No, I'm not. He's not bothering me. Do you know who this is?" So and then the cop realizes that, oh, it's Falcon, and everything is fine. But everything's not fine actually with Bucky. He's the one that has a warrant out for his arrest. Now, what the warrant is for, is I guess more of a white collar thing. He missed his therapy session, and which would be, which the cop even says again. And this is just everything in this scene it has a race implication. The cop says it's like missing a check-in with your PO, right? Like missing which, he's comparing it to a black person who would have to check in with their PO, right? Yep. Every single thing in this scene has a something racial implicated by it. And that's why I wanted to touch on you from the beginning of this scene. Black Falcon. Oh, why does that matter? Then we get into seeing Isaiah, who was a black super soldier who was constantly tested on, likely because of his skin color, who was thrown behind enemy lines to fight radicals by himself because he was a disposable black super soldier. He was hidden from everybody. Nobody knew about Isaiah, even Sam, even Cap did not know about this guy, likely because of his race. And it's just constant. And I think they did it. Yes, maybe it was a little on the nose. Maybe it was a little much, but I think Disney did an amazing job with this sequence of really showing. And I wish they did it in a little more subtly throughout the episode as well. And there are some points in there, but they wanted you to know in this scene that Sam in particular is going to struggle with this through this series. And this was just an exposition on racial tensions and racial issues as a whole. But Sam in particular being the one that's going to have to deal with it.
Yeah. I do like the way they do it with subtlety, though. Like, you could easily go for the easy, just like right in your face version of this, where it's just surface level, okay, racism by cops, here we go. But it's the subtleties in it, the way they talk to him. I think it might go over some people's heads if they're not paying enough attention to it, and it's really done well.
I really hope
not. I hope not too, but this country and
I don't
people
think
in
it
general.
was like it. I don't think it was subtle. I don't think it was subtle at all. I think it was in your face, intentional. And if it's missed, that's a really big problem.
Well, I think that's on the individual. So it's more about your personal character
that's what
than
I mean. Yeah,
the writers and what they're doing.
I think it's more subtle than what we've seen in other media, though. I think there are a lot of things that put things out there that are like way more on the nose of somebody reaches in their pocket and they've got a certain skin color and they get the guns turned on them, stuff like that. This was more personal interactions rather than like going to the extreme of it, I guess. It does get into it, obviously, when they ask Bucky if he's bothering him, but, it immediately pulls back by, okay, you're Falcon, awesome, cool, and these guys I think it's like a constant tug of war, I guess. Maybe not subtle, but it's a different way of doing it rather than just going from 0 to 60 like a lot of other forms of media do with this kind of stuff and like doing it really on the nose. I think this one did a back and forth to really show that duality. So I guess subtlety wasn't the right word, but I think the duality is shown more prevalently in this because you've got the interplay of the white character with the black character, when a lot of media, I think you just see like white cops approaching black person,
I understand what you're saying. I just don't think that I think that the only thing that what I guess wasn't explicit was they pulled a gun out on him right away, right? But from the beginning of the interaction, sir, calm down, sir, you don't have to get angry. Is he bothering you? Though there was no like real pushback of there was pushback, obviously, but right from the beginning, it was escalated by the white police officer, by the police officer. It doesn't matter the skin color.
Yeah.
Police officer.
And we find out just in a few minutes or moments later that they're actually there to get Bucky, but that's not why they stop these two individuals. They stop these two individuals because they see a white man being yelled at by a black man. That's their
tense interaction between a white man and a black man.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I'm just saying, I guess it feels less on the nose than other things that I've seen where, and maybe it's just because my wife watches a lot of fucking SVU, and I think I'm just seeing that like really surface level network TV bullshit version of like, we're tackling the issue, guys. It's like, no, you're not. You're assholes.
Well, and I think the
that's-
show's been setting this up since the first episode now, and we got
Sure.
to see it, really at the end scene of episode 1, and then laid out throughout this episode. So what I was talking about before with the character Lamar, yeah, it's literally just being used as a character, I can't even say the word, caricature.
I
Thank you.
totally understand your point with that now, by the
Of
way.
now, why this person? Like, obviously, these two people have a history with one another. That just happens to be a convenient fact. But what's better is that this is a black person that can be teamed up with the Captain America figure, because that's what the last Captain America had. So this person is literally the token black man. And that's how we're going to portray him. And we'll give you his name, but we also got the other character's name, but we're not going to introduce you. We're not going to give him, we're just going to use him as a way to support this other character. And I think that's like the representation of, can't think of the way to describe it other than like toxic white cisgendered men. And that's like what's being represented in here. Right? And then you got your token black person with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally understand that point, and why you were making it now. I certainly like my pushback was more about, well, you don't have to, like, more of a directional, pushback was you don't necessarily have to have, the explicit introduction of a character to make them an actual character.
No, I don't need the exposition. This is Lamar. He's the best friend, and nice to meet you. And like,
that's the argument that I thought you were making.
Yeah, no.
But no, having it basically allowing him to be in the background as the black character, and not giving him his due character, that in a racial implication, I totally understand. So it was a good call out at that point. But yeah, I mean, they do a good job at kind of plotting this stuff throughout the series so far. But it all kind of led up to this scene, and I don't think Disney is going to allow you with this scene to overlook the racial discussion in this series.
Oh, and I think that's the point of what this show is going to be. You have to have the answer to what happens with Captain America.
Just to jump in real quick, I shouldn't say Disney. I don't mean to say Disney because Disney does not deserve the credit for this. The writers do.
Yeah.
Are you saying that the company that owns everything that was run by a Nazi sympathizer does not deserve credit, Zach?
That's what I'm saying.
That's really brave.
And not just that, but the corporation does not deserve credit for the content. It's the individual proprietors that actually create this content that deserve the credit for it. So I say Disney a lot, but it has nothing to do with Disney.
Yep, absolutely.
Sorry. I didn't mean. I just realized.
Well, now we have to individually name them every episode.
Andy, go ahead.
Now you've put that on us.
Well, I guess we can save this conversation to like the speculation part of it, but I see where the show's going. This is the message. We have to address how we get the Falcon to be a black figure in what year is this now? 2023 or something?
No, I don't even know.
I guess that would make. Yeah, is it 2023? I think that's.
It's right. Something like that because it's set in like the near future. But it's contextualized within today's society. So this is a really great story for them to tell, and we're gonna get how it fits into the MCU and the story that they're trying to tell. But like the message of this is we're going to elevate a person of color, a black person, to a prominent position within a fictional universe, and that's going to allow us to have a discussion about race and see imagery and talk about metaphor and all of that and give something kids to look up to. So just like Black Panther was a way for people of color, particularly black people, children especially, to look up to a hero, we're getting that same thing now but tied directly into like the issues of like American society.
Yep,
absolutely. Yeah. That was a long conversation, but I think it needed all that.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say it was long and it was lengthy, but That's the thing. That's what type of things this engenders, and that's why it's so important that it's put into prominent media so we can have these discussions. Because it's not always easy to do it just when you're watching the news and all this shit. That's really what divides people. Anyway, so Bucky's taken away. He's arrested for missing his court-mandated sessions with his shrink, and that's part of his pardon, like we said in the last episode. So Sam is waiting for him at the police station, and Bucky's shrink walks in and says that Bucky is going to be released and introduces herself to him. And while Bucky's coming out, he's like, well, thank you for bailing him out and everything. And she's like, oh, I didn't do it. And in comes fucking New Cap again, and he's all, hey, how's it going? All you other patriots here, shaking the hands of the police officers, and they're all buddy-buddy, and it just goes more into this whole thing that we're getting into with implications of police and authority and race and taking over for somebody when you seemingly shouldn't have. She ends up telling Bucky and Sam that they have to have a session immediately, and it's a pretty funny scene because Sam's like, well, no, I don't have to. She's like, yeah, you're coming in here anyway. So she's such a strong personality that she is able to pull him into it begrudgingly. And when she sits him down, she uses this thing called the miracle question, which I'm not aware of because I guess I'm lucky enough to not have been at couples counseling before. But she says it's something that she uses as an exercise with couples where she asks them, what miracle would you want in your life that'll instantly make your life better? So both of them end up giving the snarky response of like, I want him to fucking talk less. And then she forces them to face each other in their chairs and makes them get really, really close to the point where they're pretty much interlocking legs. Super uncomfortable scene for them, but they actually go with it. Like, they're just like, yeah, I guess this is as fucking close as we can get. And makes them look into each other's eyes. She then asks... Oh,
just a quick clarification. So she actually uses two techniques. I don't remember what the first one was, and it might be the miracle question. But it fails, and she's like, all right, now I got to go to my extreme one. So she's going like advanced couples therapy. She starts with like, all right, we're gonna do like the intro one, and like, all right, that's not fucking working. We got to go into the deep shit now.
Well, it's because they gave the snarky answer, so she's like, okay, they're both being assholes. They're both so similar that they're not liking each other too. That's the funny thing too, is like, these guys are so alike. It's like when you meet the person that's exactly like you, and like somebody tells you that you love them, and then you're like, I fucking hate him.
Yeah,
I cannot stand this guy. He is too much like me. That's why I never understand those people who are like, when I get married, my wife better like Star Wars, she better like Marvel, she better like everything I like. Me and my wife have so dissimilar interests, and we get along great. Maybe that works for other people, but I don't fucking understand the people who like say that's a prerequisite. That's just a little bit of a rant. I don't know.
Agreed. But I also wanted to point out the awesomeness of Bucky's therapist. I really like her character. Like, she even like she can't stand these guys in the way that they're acting towards each other. She's even like, sweet Jesus. What, like, she says sweet Jesus.
Yeah.
In front of them, from the way that they're acting. I think her character is awesome.
Yeah,
I love her.
It should also be pointed out too that in the first episode in this one, she mentions a couple of times that she's a vet herself. So it's not just a therapist who like can't relate to these guys. She knows exactly what both have been through, as far as like PTSD and not being able to acclimate to civilian life and all these other things that come with being a vet. So it's not like there's this snarky therapist who can't really relate to them. She knows exactly what's going on. And that's why she's like so short with them too. It's like, okay, I know these guys, this isn't going to work with them, and this is going to be the only way that I can get them to do it. And that's like what engenders that reaction of like, sweet Jesus, like, I've seen this shit before, I'm done.
She's good.
So she ends up asking them when they're looking eye to eye, Bucky, what aggravates you about Sam? And Bucky basically says, like, Sam, why the fuck did you give up the shield? And Sam responds saying that, actually, Bucky says, Steve trusted it to you, and it's his legacy. It's like this important symbol. So, like, we get, like, from the characters exactly how important this shield is. Like, and we know how important it is just by watching this already. But they're saying it right on the nose that this is such an important thing, both from Steve and for you going forward. And so in that, he also says, if Steve was wrong about you, then maybe he was wrong about me. So that's like one of the deeper issues with Bucky too, is like, what if Steve was wrong about believing in me post Winter Soldier, that I could go back to being a good person again? So it was a really interesting interaction between them. And, in that too, Sam does say that he never wanted any of this to happen. This was exactly what he was trying to avoid, and he wants him to respect that, but obviously they're not seeing eye to eye right now. And I thought it was interesting too. I don't know if you guys picked up on this. I watch a lot of these movies over and over again, and one of my favorite ones is The Winter Soldier. And you can hear Cap's theme from The Winter Soldier in Civil War played in a different version of it, but it's played underneath their conversation together, because they are part of Cap's legacy too, not just the shield. So I'm really looking forward to like hearing more stuff with the music too, because I mentioned in the last episode there were certain moments where Bucky was Bucky, but you'd hear the Winter Soldier theme play underneath him when it was something that was referring to something he had done in the past. So I like how they're playing with the music from the movies and playing it in here while also introducing their own stuff as well.
Yeah, well, this scene, and just to follow up on what I was talking about earlier with the Bucky and Sam character growth and their relationship to the struggle of the kind of the absence of Steve's leadership. It kind of manifests in this scene where they're both trying to figure out how to navigate not only themselves but their relationship with the lack of Steve's leadership. They're both kind of trying to take over Steve's legacy, or continue Steve's legacy, or protect Steve's legacy. They're in a bit of a power struggle with each other, and they're both just trying to do right by Steve. And all of that just kind of manifests in this scene here that I'm just following up on from what I was talking about earlier in the plane scene. So we'll see where it goes. I think that I hope to see that they can cooperate on the kind of the continuation of Steve's legacy.
Yeah, I would imagine they will. That's probably going to be the end result of this, but we'll see. It's been interesting so far. So, yeah, Sam said that he thought he did what was right, but they can't really agree. So he just suggests, we're going to squash the beef here right now just so we can get out of this session. We've got work to do. We don't have time for this shit. And so they shake hands. They agree to just get to work against the Flag Smashers, and they'll maybe pick this shit up later on.
Well, they come to agreement. They'll work together on the condition that once it's done, they'll never talk to one another.
Oh, that's right. Yep. They're going to go their separate ways completely, which
we know it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. But
right.
So when they get outside the station, New Cap is waiting outside, and he tells them about Carly Morgenthau, the leader of the Flag Smashers, that she's bringing the vaccines to the camps that are established in Eastern Europe of sympathizers to the Flag Smashers' cause. Sam tells them that they shouldn't work together since New Cap has all these authorizations and rules of engagement being part of the government and the GRC. And he says, me and Bucky are free agents here. We're just kind of freewheeling it here and winging it, and we can pretty much do whatever the fuck we want. We've got no jurisdiction, or restrictions, I guess, so to speak. And Cap's response to this, again, that this is him again trying to recruit them to be the sidekicks along with Lamar with him. And he says, well, if you guys are going to go do your own thing and be free agents, then stay the hell out of our way, because we've got a job to do. So there's going to be more tension going forward. They're at least leaving on decent terms right now, as far as like they're not at each other's throats physically, but something's going to come to a head, I think, later on. So we've got this scene later on here, which we mentioned before we started recording was one of our least favorite scenes. We've got the Flag Smashers. They're loading up this plane with a bunch of the vaccines, and these authorities are coming for them, probably the GRC or some other branch of the military, government, whatever. And one of the Flag Smashers tells Carly that he'll stay back to buy them time to escape. So they give the chant, one world, one people. He stays behind, and it's supposed to be this like epic escape scene for them, I guess, where he actually buys them time by distracting them. All he does is go up to like a telephone pole, bring it down in front of them to like stop these officials from coming any further, and then he decides to bum rush them with no weapons whatsoever and like just being a super soldier. But super soldiers aren't bulletproof completely, and he just gets bullets rained on him and dies in a blaze of glory. And they focus none of their fire on the plane. They just shoot this guy until he's human Swiss cheese, and they just waste their time. So, like, they do escape, the purpose is achieved, but like the scene doesn't work well. I really don't understand why they weren't chasing the plane more.
Oh, and it's very low budget. Like, it looks like something you would watch on regular basic cable. This is network television-esque, like effects wise. Like, it's kind of like a slow motion, like getting shot thing, and like the plane just like kind of flying off. Like, it's just not good. I don't think we needed this scene. I don't think it added anything other than maybe you might now care about these characters more because they're willing to like sacrifice themselves for Carly. But other than that, like, I could have done without it.
Yeah. Do we know really quickly if, because this show too, I think, was hampered as well by COVID a little bit as far as shooting. Do we know if there were like any reshoots in this? Because that feels like a reshoot scene where they just kind of threw it in there, like you said, that low budget where the focus is really off, and the way it looked is not on par with everything else. If they did have any of their shooting hampered by COVID, I would think that's one that sticks out like a sore thumb.
Mm-hmm. But I don't remember hearing anything about that particularly that affected. Like, I know with WandaVision, we learned after the fact that there was stuff that was cut. Like, it was supposed to be 10 episodes or something. That got refiddled to 9. I don't know if this one was intended to be more than 6 episodes and refiddled, but that could be the case.
Yeah, that would be interesting to find out. Well, anyway, so they escape, and we then go to a scene where Bucky is talking with Sam again, and he comes to the realization that Isaiah was talking about Hydra when he said, your people came after me, you and your people. And Sam at first, playing off the race thing again, thought that he was talking about, white people coming after him as a black super soldier. But it was more, Hydra in particular was just coming after seemingly on the side of good super soldiers and trying to take them out. So he realizes that's what he was talking about, and he not super excitedly suggests, we've got to go meet with this one dude who knows everything about the secrets of Hydra. And who do we know in the MCU who knows pretty much everything there is to know about Hydra at this point? Because Hydra's been taken down, the Hydra infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., everybody's probably behind bars or dead in some capacity. Who really knows all the secrets after Black Widow leaked all the information from Hydra to the real world. That's Zemo. He's the one who hunted down Bucky to get the codes to activate the Winter Soldier initiative in him, and he's the one who knew where the base was in Russia to get rid of the other Winter Soldiers. So they do say, I wasn't a big fan of this. Sam, like, in response is like, I guess we're going to go find Zemo. And it's like, yeah, you didn't have to say it. I think everybody gets it. But because especially, too, the last shot we get is in Zemo's cell. It's just him kind of looking up, realizing that somebody's maybe coming for him.
Well, I agree with that take that they didn't need it. For you Marvel fans, I had no idea who the heck this guy was and what his relationship. And that's Disney is still trying to tailor these products to people who are not familiar with the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, it's just a janky line, though. It's just saying the thing that you're gonna do. And
just directionally, it was a little much.
Yeah,
They could have saved it for the next episode, or either shown him or just said it. And it's just it's a little repetitive.
Yeah, I mean, I would have probably preferred like a shot of like the going into the jail, and like you see like the prisoner like numbers of their cells, and they go through, and it's like Zeno is like what the thing that they or Zemo, they see it like on the computer screen, and that like lets you know it's the setup. I think that would have been better, but no, you have to tell your audience like, oh, we're going to see Zemo. Who's Zemo? And now you can go through and do all of your Googling to remember, like, oh, that's that guy from those movies. I remember him now.
Or you could listen to episode 1 of this podcast where we recapped all of the main characters, including Zemo. Thank you.
Yeah, we spoiled it for them anyway, so you're getting angry of the thing that we did. We gave it away.
Well,
that's right. We didn't
in
even
more
see him in the
detail.
first episode.
We could have had this would have been like a better reveal, like, oh, Zemo's in it. But Ted, you had to go and be like, well, Zemo's the character that we know from all the marketing for this.
Well, I mean, it is though. That's why I thought
You're right.
We should tackle him first because he's on all the marketing, and Agent 13 was on all the marketing too, and she hasn't shown up yet. They only mention that she's on the run in this episode, and that's
they
it.
did mention it to her. Yep, or mention her.
So
yep.
she might show up next episode. That's probably a good lead-in for her to show up. Maybe that's how they get in to speak to Zemo somehow. But actually, she's on the run, so she would have no pull, I imagine.
I thought that's the character that they were going to see when he was mentioning, like, we need to go talk to someone. When they go to see Isaiah, I thought we were going to go see that one agent lady.
Agent Carter.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's a good way to bring up this character. Is we have to go find her for somehow where she's up to or doing whatever.
Yeah. I like that they went to go see this Isaiah character, though. It adds a total different layer to this whole thing and throws you for a loop, too. If you are thinking that, it's going to linearly introduce us to all the characters that we know are going to be in it, like I did with the recap thing. Instead, it's introducing all these other little threads, even if it doesn't go beyond that scene with Isaiah. Like, there was a black super soldier, and there are implications for that, and that's just a really cool thread to drop in this, too. And it's awesome, too, that it connects to the actual comics, that it connects to this was the guy who was the actual black Captain America. So that was really interesting. Yeah, so that's how it ends. I really enjoyed this episode, though, from start to finish, for the most part. Other than that last scene, it's kind of janky. I agree with Andy that you do have to tell the general audience who Zemo is, just maybe in a different way. Makes more sense. Like you said, zooming in on a computer. They did it earlier with Carly, actually. You don't see her introduced until John Walker, the new Cap, says her name later on. But you might not put 2 and 2 together unless you see that computer screen with her picture showing her with that name. But anyway, this episode overall, I had a good time with it. I think it got more into the action. It picked up at a better pace than the first episode, but I think the first episode served its purpose of setting up where these characters really are in their mental state and what's going on in their personal lives and what will motivate them through this series. You guys have any final thoughts on this episode?
A great episode. I thought, maybe outside of that one directional decision, this is great, well shot, well directed. Dialogue was on point. I love the themes of this series so far and the character growth that we've seen from our main characters. And I am now bought in. I'm excited to see the next episode.
I think we are going to move very quickly over the next few episodes because we are at the halfway point already next week. So if you are following a typical, storyboard, this is the rising action now. We have to get to the climax of some big event happening. And then usually, good storytellers will do that in like the penultimate episode, your second to last, and then give you that third episode the final episode to wrap up, have either it's the last battle or whatever the thing is to lead you into what are the stakes now that this has happened. What are the repercussions going forward? So I'm excited because we'll probably get into, not that means more action, but more like relevancy to the actual story that's trying to be told throughout the series.
Yeah. Interesting points. Any speculation or anything going into the next episode based on what we saw? Or do you think it's still too early to go into any of that?
I mean, for next episode, I don't know if we'll actually go to see Zemo next episode, but in the next couple, we'll probably see Zemo and get more information about these super soldiers and where they came from. I'm interested to see where Agent Carter comes in. We still really haven't gotten anything about her yet. So outside of the one comment made in this episode, maybe we'll see her next episode. Not sure exactly where she'll fit into this, but in terms of large picture things, I want to see what's going to happen with that shield. I think eventually, man, how cool would it be if Bucky got it? That's what I think would be awesome if Bucky kept it. But
I don't think he's gonna. Really... He's got to go. It's got to go to the Falcon because that's like what he does, right?
I know, but I don't want it to go to. I think it would be better. It would be fit better with Bucky. How cool would it be to have the shield and the arm? He would be unstoppable.
Zach wants to continue the destructive cycle of having a white Captain America. Cancel him.
You can cancel
I didn't want to say it.
It would be awesome.
I didn't want to say it, but I had to. I
think I deserve to be canceled, but
I want to jump off this speculation thing here because I think this is something that shouldn't be missed if you're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and everything ties together. The original timeline for how Phase 4 was supposed to lay out before COVID happened was we get Black Widow first, followed by Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So
that's true.
I feel like there are things that we are going to learn eventually this summer when Black Widow comes out that might give more context to what's going on with the super soldier stuff, because it's Russia, right? We know where that's from. We know there's going to be other superheroes. So I feel like we might be missing things because of that. And then also what comes next too. We've already seen WandaVision. Well, technically we're supposed to have the Eternals was supposed to come out and the Shang-Chi movie. So there were two other things prior to WandaVision to give us MCU context, or even you'd say three things before WandaVision because you throw in Black Widow there too. So I feel like with Captain Falcon or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we're missing some contextual things that we might have been able to speculate maybe a little more, as Zach said, with nuance earlier, if we had those things out already.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. But isn't it curious that no matter what order this stuff comes out in, it stands on its own?
It does, yeah.
And it connects well too. They do such a good job of it. It's amazing. You can watch the MCU in almost any order you want to. Unlike Star Wars, there are different orders to watch it in, but I think there's a concrete thread with Star Wars is like you can watch it in this order, but you might want to watch this order if you have context already. With the MCU, you can watch so many of these as standalone movies, but you can also see the connections between Captain Marvel and Iron Man 1. I mean, it's incredible the way they do this shit. Well, I don't really have anything speculative. I thought I had something in the middle of the episode when we were talking about something, and I totally lost what it was going to be, so maybe I'll think of it another time, maybe for next episode. But thanks for joining me for this, guys. I really appreciate you guys joining me, and really good discussion on this episode. And we'll be back for the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, and do you guys want to plug anything? Or
Twitch.tv/Darth Buckman. Catch me on TikTok. That's my favorite social media to be on.
Nice. I'm on Twitter at _Zach Russo. Also follow the Sacred Jedi Text podcast. You can check us out there where we do Star Wars book reviews and discussions. So you can follow us there at Sacred Jedi Text. No S at the end of that.
Very cool. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
As a character called U.S. Agent.